on activity. There is no development physically or intellectually without effort. And what does effort means? Effort means work. Good evening and welcome. This is Face the Nation, Monday night at 9:30 p.m. right here at Stein Studios. Now in 2009, right after the war ended, they spoke of making Sri Lanka the miracle of Asia by the year 2016. A few months from now, that exactly is approximately around 4 months from now, 2016 comes to an end. You at home, do you see a miracle happening? Do you see Sri Lanka moving towards that objective? The answer is no. There was a change of regime in the year 2015 on the 8th of January. Prior to the polls, many promises were made. What were the development that they were talking about? They spoke of the mega police development plan. They spoke of the Port City project. And now, a few weeks ago, a tripartite agreement was signed. What was that all about? It was about creating the Port City and transforming it to a financial city. What does it really mean? Is it the Port City in a different name, or is it a new project altogether? Tonight, our topic of discussion is development. Do we have the money to carry out all these development activities? Do we have an economically sound environment? Do we have in Sri Lanka consistent policy? Is Sri Lanka a corrupt free society? We've seen what was happening over the last few weeks. Agreements were signed by ministries with lobby groups. Are we a corruption-free nation? To discuss all this and more, we have 4 individuals. They are public officials working for the government and appointed by the government. Let me introduce them to you. Let's start off with Mr. Nihal Fernando, Project Director, Port City Project, or now known as the Financial City Project. Also joining us this evening is Mr. Naina Marvel Mother, Head of Investments, Western Region Megapolis Planning Project. You can see right now is Mr. Lakshman Jayasekara, Project Director, Team Leader, Western Region Megapolis Planning Project. Let me once again introduce to you Mr. Naina Marvel Mother, Head of Investments, Western Region Megapolis Planning Project. Also joining us this evening is Dr. Dimantha De Silva, Consultant, Team Leader, Transport Team, Western Region Megapolis Planning Project. Let's start off the conversation with Mr. Lakshman Jayasekara, Project Director, Team Leader, Western Region Megapolis Planning Project. Mr. Jayasekara, megapolis is a word that was very common during the political race, during the presidential race. People were talking about transforming Sri Lanka into a different country, transforming the Western province to a different unit altogether. We saw an event taking place in a very gala manner at the Independence Square in May last year as well. But what exactly is happening right now? We don't see concrete action being taken. It's nearly 1 year and a few months. What exactly is megapolis? What exactly is happening? The time starts now.
Thank you very much, first of all, for inviting all of us to MTV Network, and we are very grateful given an opportunity for us to face the nation. As you said, we will try and do that to the best of our abilities. Now, Megapolis Project Office was started on the 5th of May 2015, and it took about a year to get the plan together for the Western region. Now, Western region is a little bit bigger than the Western province. It's about 3,500 square kilometers. So, during the period that passed, what we did was we put a plan together, taking the expertise of Sri Lankan experts as well as Sri Lankan new generation of professionals, and bringing in the Singaporean advisors at the latter part of the plan preparation. So, having done the main plan preparation, what we did was we evolved completely new projects, about 150 projects, which have been now published on various documentation and various consultation process and the various forums where we went and presented them and got the people to discuss them and agree. Now what is happening is that we are in the stage of implementation, moving into the implementation from the planning stage and the project formulation stage. While the project formulation can go on and on for a while, and now is the beginning of the implementation. So we are there.
Ms. Jayasekara, you spoke of discussions taking place at different levels to discuss about projects amounting to 150. Where is action? You can be having discussions for years, months to come as well, but where is real action? Where is efforts being taken by the government, by your department, by the ministry to execute these discussions into action?
Right. We have a ministry called Megapolis and Western Development, and under that there are 3 agencies, main agencies, and there are a few more: Urban Development Authority, Sri Lanka Land Reclamation and Development Corporation, and the Megapolis project. Now the new finance city at what is called Port City, and there are a few other projects. So what we do is the action being diverted and directed through these various agencies. In addition to that, we also use all the ministries, say that way, all the ministries where the development activities are undertaken. So the Megapolis plan is the umbrella plan, and the projects are directed through various agencies.
But where is action, Mr. Jayasekar? We speak of 150 projects. You say that the first event was held on the 5th of May 2015. It's been close to a year now, over an year now to be very precise. But where is real action taking place?
Yeah, I'll name few. One of the major achievement of the project was getting the transport plan together with my colleague here, Dr. Dimantha Silva will explain in detail. But we have now come into an agreement in the final stage of signing and all that feasibility for the transport system to be resolved through introduction of a light rail system. Light rail system is costing eventually about $5-6 billion, of which the first part would be about $1.5 billion. Now this has been agreed with the government of Japan, and we will explain that later. In addition to that, one of the other projects that we mooted as a part of the transport system is the elevated roads. Now 3 sections of the elevated roads, starting from the port city in Colombo Fort, going up to Paliagoda, then taking a U-turn from there and coming up to Rajagiriya, from Rajagiriya to Outer Circular Road. Now this is a huge investment program. These are unprecedented in the city of Colombo and its environment, and therefore these are the kind of projects that will transform the entire region.
Mr. I want to interrupt you for a second here. So the projects that you're talking about, the Rajagiriya roundabout having a flyover and so on and so forth, was it a plan that was made by the present regime, or was it a plan that was made by the previous regime?
Yeah, I was not talking about the Rajagiri overpass only. Yeah. I was talking about an elevated road going at a high elevation starting from Fort to Kottawa.
Yeah, so my question to you is, was it a plan that was made by the previous regime, or was it a plan made by the present regime?
There are plans and plans and plans during last 10 years, right. And most of the plans were not given the high priority. Right. The priority given once the one that got implemented.
Thank you very much.
Now we are going on a cohesive, integrated, complete set of plans. Right. Therefore, what is picked up are the priority projects that are needed by the people, the traffic situation, for example, to address the most troubling issues. So that is how the transport sector come into the forefront, and many other projects that I can explain.
Mr. Lakshman Jayasekara, Project Director, Team Leader, Western Region Megapolis Planning Project. Let's now move our attention to Dr. Dimantha Silva, Consultant Team Leader, Transport Team, Western Region Megapolis Planning Project. Your name was mentioned. I in fact want to go to Ms. Naina Marvel Mada before coming to you, but just because your name was mentioned about the transportation sector, let me drag our attention to you now. Mr. Jayasekara said that a light rail system is going to be introduced. So does that mean that the monorail system, where discussions were taking place very rigorously with the BOI, is out of the window, and you all have resorted to a new system? Your time starts now.
Yeah. The light rail system is very similar to monorail system. What's the difference is the technology is the difference. So once you call the monorail or LRT or light rail system, we are looking at the connectivity, where we cannot go with the urban rail system. So the one problem with the monorail system is more predominantly a point-to-point system. So you could see all over the world where it's more connecting the airport to the city or going from theme parks circulation system. So it has not evolved as a network. But we are looking at resolving the transportation problem as a network solution. So we need to go not point to point, for example from Male Bay to Fort, but we need to have a connectivity between Male Bay with Moratuwa, Male Bay with Kadawatha, or all this connection, and we need to have a network of connection. So that's why technology has changed. So it is very similar to monorail, and LRT is very similar, only the technology has changed, and we had taken a technical decision why we need to go from monorail to LRT, and I can explain more if you need to explain.
Dr. Silva, let's go to the explanation in a bit, just to get some clarity on this. So your department has received $5 to $6 billion already to kickstart the project, as Mr. Jayasekara said, or have you all already got the money, or don't you all have the money?
No. The whole total project, we have 75 kilometers of LRT network, which comes to about $3.5 billion. Out of that, we have phased it out for 3 phases. The first phase is the inner city ring, and then a connection from Borella to Male Bay. That is a 25 kilometer stretch. So that is about $1.25 billion. For that, we have we had a couple of options to take. One, we predominantly want to promote more PPP option, private-public partnership, but we had the opportunity to use the funding available with Japanese funding. So that is what JICA funding. So that is what we have secured. So that money is available for us to use for the first phase of the LRT.
So if the money is available, why not kickstart the project?
So we have done some planning work. We have taken time to do the planning.
Still planning, Dr. De Silva? We've seen these plans happening across 10 years, as Mr. Jayasekara correctly pointed out, and you all are still planning. Why?
Oh, we had to make it right. We had to make the right, because this is a long-term investment. And first thing, we changed from monorail to LRT, and then that took time for us to make that decision. It was a political decision, technical decision, that we had to take time and do the correct decision, even though it takes certain time to take, but we had to take that correct decision. So we have taken that decision, and now we are in the process. Even we had to start means we had to still do a feasibility study. So we had to go to detailed feasibility study to find what exact route we are going with, where the station is going to be. So that's why it is taking time. So
the feasibility study is currently ongoing. Is that what you're trying to say?
No, it is almost ready to be started. We are in the process of formulating the project team. We have already started the project.
When will you start the project?
Probably within 2 months' time, we should be starting the project.
Is it all practical, Dr. De Silva? You've been in this sector for a long time. All these plans seems like miracles that was promised in the year 2009. Tell me why I should believe that this is really going to take place, this is really going to happen.
Well, these things should have happened about 15 years back. No, we would not have been in this position if it happened 15 years back. So the beauty of this project is we are moving from the planning stage. All this time we had so many plans in place. So the beauty is that we are moving, this project is coupled with the plan as well as the implementation. So we can have hope that we have started many things, started the process of it, and I think we should have hope of getting it done. I think it's our task as planners to make it happen.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dimandra De Silva, Consultant Team Leader, Transport Team, Western Region, Megapolis Planning Project. We now drag our attention to Mr. Naina Mavil Mada, Head of Investments, Western Region, Megapolis Planning Project. Mr. Mavil Mada, your task is very tough given the current economic environment in the country. There is a lot of inconsistent policy. There seems to be no direction as far as the country's finances are concerned. Makes your life a bit more difficult. How do you envisage to get your finances in? Will the people come and invest? Let's keep JICA to a particular side for the moment, and let's talk about the other investments. Do we really have the money to do all this?
So here's the thing, the overall program is very, very ambitious. So we're talking 40 billion plus or minus dollars, and that over 20, 30 years. But the key thing to remember is this is not envisioned to be a completely government spend. Okay, the principle is mobilize private capital wherever possible. For that to happen, there's major trunk infrastructure and major sections that we will have to put in from the government side to get these things rolling. So the light rail investment, for example, is a backbone system that sets up the city for the next 50 years. On the fundamentals of having a faster transit corridor, for example, that makes development along certain corridors where people movement can happen very fast much, much more viable. So what we see is when big things get committed, that has a trickle effect in making other things happen. An example, we talk about in the megapolis plan. All the documents, by the way, on the megapolis plan are on the website. There's about 400 megabytes of information. Everything is public knowledge. So I'd urge everybody to go visit and understand all the details.
It makes people's life more difficult to understand what exactly is on the website and the megabytes that you're talking about. So let's make it a bit simpler.
But let me get back to this example. So if you say, on one end we talk about having a science and technology city and developing Malambe Homagama, that corridor, as a science and technology city. Right now, Malambe is 1 hour or plus from Colombo Fort. When the LRT comes in, that's going to be 22 minutes from Colombo Fort. That makes a fundamentally different value proposition for Malambe. That makes it easier for us to attract high potential investments into Malambe. So that's just one example. As we roll out certain other pieces of infrastructure, it makes other things more palatable. I'll take another example. We talk about the port access. Right now, you speed along Airport Colombo Highway, and then you spend another 45 minutes getting to the port or fort. Once you get the 5.6 kilometer port access highway in, and that is funded, by the way, by ADB, and that will be done in 3 years, you're talking another 5 minutes from Kalani Bridge to Fort. Right? So that opens up a completely different potential along the Katunayaka-Colombo belt. So I think that's the way we look at this. We have to do the enabling investments. Some of these enabling investments will have to be done through public spend, but wherever possible, we'll start packaging these as private investments and spin them off that way.
Mr. Mahavimada, when you speak about making Sri Lanka a science and technology city, I remember the pledges made by the previous regime to try to make Sri Lanka a logistics hub, a knowledge hub, an education hub, several hubs. I really can't even recollect the hubs that the government was trying to make. There were 5 hubs to be very precise. However, why is this different to what was promised? We saw an airport being built in Matala, which is almost defunct. You see a port that was built by the previous regime, which is only used to transport vehicles to Sri Lanka. Why is this project different to that which was promised to Sri Lankans a few years ago?
I think the answer to that lies in the question you asked, Dimanta. Why not build now? Because we actually spend a lot of time going through and analyzing situations, modeling scenarios, working across multiple agencies to try to figure out what really will fly. And then try to package that and really understand the economics of a space, the potential of it, and then commit to it. So we're looking, for example, $1.25 billion on an LRT. This is an investment that will anchor us for 50 years, maybe 100.
I'm hearing a lot of different figures. Ms. Jayasekara said 5 billion, Demand said 3.5 billion, and you are saying 1.5 billion.
No.
What exactly is the cost?
Yeah, so it's 3.5 billion is the total estimate for the 75 kilometers. For the initial 25 kilometer stretch at $50 million a kilometer, we're looking at 1.25, right? So that it's rough because you'll have to do the detail engineering and there'll be a plus or minus. But when you spend 1.25 billion or 1.5 billion, you have to do your diligence. You have to do detailed study of how to spend that in a robust way. So I think it's the duty of care that we have that will make the difference.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mahavimada, Head of Investments, Western Region Megapolis Planning Project. We now move our attention to an individual who is not in the Western Region Megapolis project per se. He is the project director of the financial city, previously known as the famous Port City project, Mr. Nihal Fernando. Mr. Fernando, interestingly, we are now hearing about a financial city. Why and how is it different from the Port City project that was signed by the previous regime and the tripartite agreement that was signed a few weeks ago? Why is it different? Is it different at all, or is it just the same thing in a different name? The time starts now.
Yep. It is a different development, but the physical structure is going to be the same. The creation of a new town is the basic thing that we are going to do. It was started in the past, and as everyone knows, it had to be temporarily suspended due to certain technical reasons as well. And after that, we got involved, and there was a time given for us to negotiate with the investor, and also to make it more beneficial to Sri Lanka. That is what we did, and the outcome of that was the tripartite agreement. And there are certain differences between the tripartite agreement and the concession agreement which was signed previously. But the concession agreement which was signed previously is a valid document. We cannot deviate totally from that. So we had to keep in mind that we are still governed by that, and the tripartite agreement was worked out, getting certain advantages to us which both parties agreed. So now, earlier with the creation of the new city, the port city, it was going to be like expansion of the Colombo city, expansion of the CBD area of Colombo, and it was going to be something like that. But now we have got to focus onto it. Here we are going to detail that city into a new international financial center. Now this making it the international financial center is not building buildings, putting up buildings. It is bringing in new legislation which will be done by the government of Sri Lanka to make investments more attractive in this region, and investments different than the investments that are going to happen in other parts of the country. And there are certain changes that we brought in by the government of Sri Lanka which will make this the financial center.
So Mr. Fernando, you are trying to say, in other words, it is the same gift with a different wrapping.
Not the same, but there are certain, now as I said, in the tripartite agreement there are certain changes. Now
like
in
what?
Like earlier in the concession agreement, there was one part of the city which was to be given on outright basis to the developer. But now
Let's
we have
check Port City.
Port City, yes.
Right.
Now we have come to terms, and we have now agreed, both parties have agreed, now that portion also will be on a 99-year lease. So because of that, the entire new creation, the new city, the finance city, will be owned by the government of Sri Lanka, and different portions will be given to different parties for development on lease basis. So at the end of the lease period, the whole thing will come back to Sri Lanka, and it will be our city.
Mr. Fernando, very quick questions. I need answers very briefly to this for our viewers to understand what exactly the port city is all about. So how many areas, the span of the particular land are we talking about as far as the port city is concerned?
Yeah. The total land area that is going to be created is 269 hectares. It's about 590 acres. Out of that, there will be a large portion of green space. There will be an internal water body inside the filling area as well. So it is going to be a green city.
So you say 269 hectares of land?
Yes.
New land will be
new
created.
land.
How much of money is it going to cost?
It will be totally done by the investor.
Yeah, how
and
much of
they
money are we talking
they
about?
have calculated 1.4 billion US dollars.
There was discussions afoot with the President as well as the Minister in charge, and also Checkport City, which is the arm which is responsible for construction, with regard to compensation that was due to the Checkport City organization, which was amounting to approximately $297 million.
Yes.
Are we supposed to pay it, or are we not supposed to pay it? How did we get the benefit at the end of the day?
Yeah. Now, as I said, there was this concession agreement. Based on that, when we temporarily suspended the project, when the suspension was on, there was a need for compensation payment. So the Checkport City made a claim on the government of Sri Lanka for that thing, and that is something that the government said we will not be in a position to pay, and we are not going to consider that. So there was a time given for the officials as well as the Checkport City to negotiate on this. So there were several things negotiated. One is the 99-year lease, one is this payment. There are other things like the management of the city. Earlier, according to the earlier agreement, it was totally to be done by the government of Sri Lanka, but later we were able to come up with a solution where the Checkport City and the government entity will come into a joint venture and manage it as a self-financing project. So like that, there were several things.
So we were able to safeguard 20 hectares of land,
yes,
because of the intervention of the President.
Yes, intervention of the system.
Right.
And also compensation not paid.
So very quickly, just give me a yes or no before we move on to the Q&A. Are we supposed to pay the Chinese, or are we not supposed to pay the Chinese?
We are not supposed to pay the Chinese any compensation for stoppage of work.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Nihal Fernando, for your thoughts as well. Project Director, Port City Project, Financial City, now known as the Financial City, previously known as the Port City Project. I open the floor for questions from our journalists. On to my right is Nadim Majid, on to my immediate left is Sonali Valinga, attorney at law, and on to my far left is Charita Fernando joining us this evening. Before we start the Q&A, just to bring to light to our viewers, we are not expecting everything to happen overnight. We are not expecting for Sri Lanka to develop in a few months. But what is important at the end of the day is genuine efforts being taken by the respective government that you at home appointed. We know that Rome was not built in a day. It took time. However, there needs to be effort. There needs to be concrete measures taken to take Sri Lanka to the next level. Let me open the floor for questions from our journalists. Let's start off with Charita.
Yes, thank you, Shamil. My first question is for Mr. Jayasekara. I would like to know what were the circumstances that made the government update the project, or almost look at a fresh project. How did you envisage life in Colombo by 2025, 2030, requirements of the economy?
Yeah, thank you. I think you asked about 3 questions in one, and I shall try to do that. But before that, if I make a little clarification about the confusion about the figures, the $5 billion that I mentioned is not only for LRT, I also mentioned the elevated road. I ought to explain elevated road doesn't mean that Rajagiri overpass. It means about 30 to 32 kilometers of elevated road, which is at a higher level. So that is what was costing, in addition to 3.5 billion that Dr. Dimanta mentioned, and that will the elevated road, which has been now in the final stage of designing by the Road Development Authority, which will cost now another $1,000 to $1,500 million, depending on the costing and the design. Now coming back to your questions with regard to why megapolis, why do we have to do a plan? Actually, megapolis plan was originally done in 2002-03 period during the previous government, when Honorable Ranil Wickremesinghe was the Prime Minister, and there was a team established at the Board of Investment, and excuse me, there was a Sri Lankan team working with this then called SESMA team from Singapore. So that plan was done in 2003, and when this government came back into power in 2015 latter part, we thought that old plan needs certain upgrading and the addition, given the circumstances that the Sri Lanka was in after 13 years. So that is how the plan was regenerated. Secondly, in another 15 years, this is a 15-year plan. Many countries have what is called 5-year plans. Singapore has a 5-year plan, Maldives, Malaysia has 5-year plans, and many other countries do follow this system. So this needed that much of alteration. After another 10-15 years, I would say during the next 5 years, we must get at least majority, most of the projects implemented or initiated or get going, without which after the 15 years we will see the same situation. So my answer to you is if the plan goes according to the plan, if the implementation goes according to the plan, then we should see a completely different picture of the physical, social and economic transformation, radical transformation in the western region and rest of the country.
Mr. Mavil Mada, I want to ask you, now from 150 projects, it has moved to 180, I believe. So your total target earlier was for 40 billion. Now it has gone up to 60 billion, and you're anticipating to find majority of that funding within the first 5-10 years perhaps. How bullish are you, given the conditions right now, that Sri Lanka can attract most of this funding investment at the moment?
I think I need to be clear. I think that the number of projects and the quantum will get rolled out really over a very long time horizon, but that will have to be sequenced and come over time. So I'm basically not expecting 40 billion certainly to come in the next 5 years, but this will be an incremental rollout that will need to happen. That's the way I would look at this, actually.
How long are we talking about? You say that.
So the planning horizon is 2035, but in a way, we should look at the megapolis not as an endpoint. The megapolis is a journey. We are really trying to figure out how do you position Colombo as this major regional hub, basically the major economic center between Singapore and Dubai, and the primary service hub for the Indian Ocean region. So the entire project works on this premise. How do you position this? And at the same time, how do you ensure that we do this by keeping Sri Lanka as the most livable country and Colombo as the most livable city, really, in this entire region? And that is the challenge that we have. And I think over time, these plans also will get revisited and evolve. The project scopes will get revisited and evolve over time.
Now, you want to position Colombo as a hub, as a trading center.
Absolutely.
But if you look at our exports over the years, it has been declining and there's hardly any manufacturing happening. So ships will come only if there's cargo. So what is your plan to increase exports and boost trade?
Yeah, so again, you've got to look at it in a system-wide fashion. So getting ships in and expanding harbor capacity is just one piece of that puzzle. The next piece of that puzzle is how do you consolidate your logistics within the country. So for that, we're building this port access highway, and we're looking to consolidate logistics between Colombo and the airport belt. So that's so that we have enough warehousing and value addition space to start capturing that. Then we're looking at the manufacturing side. We're looking at 2 industrial townships, one in Mirigama and one in Horana. The reason for that is because right now we have industry scattered across the western province. It's not very well regulated. It's expensive to set up because each player has to go in and put their own basic infrastructure. They've got to manage their own waste. But once you put it into large-scale industrial establishments, it's plug and play. So industry becomes cheaper, right? So that you couple with trade policy. So now we are in the process of ironing out free trade agreements with multiple countries. We're expanding the free trade agreement with India, and negotiating one with China. We're negotiating one with Singapore, and so on. So I think over the next few years, you will start to see multiple facets of this coming together. So one is building out the infrastructure for the actual logistics. Second is building out the places for businesses to set up. Third is setting up a trade regime that actually enables this. And the fourth is then making sure that the human resource pool can be captured and trained to pump these industries that we are targeting. So that's the systems approach.
Dr. Dimanta, a bit of a theoretical question for you, but I have to ask this because people watching us at home will have this question on their minds. Sri Lanka is a developing country post-conflict, grappling with issues like poverty, transitional justice on the one hand, unruly parliamentarians, corruption allegations, etc., etc. How is a megapolis on the top of our agenda?
So are you asking a question in transportation wise, or
How important is it for the citizenry to have a project like the Megapolis project when there are real issues that Sri Lankans really face at the moment? Cost of living, transitional justice, unruly parliamentarians, corruption. How important is the Megapolis development project?
I think Megapolis is very important, because this effort is not just a transportation solution or a land use solution. This is actually a Megapolis is an integrated approach to solve a problem between transportation and land use. So I feel that there are other dying problems, but the situation is, we as an economy, if we don't have a good transportation system, if we don't have our land use systems where we need people to live, if we don't have the basic services, then the economy would not sustain. It will the city would not develop. Basically, transportation systems actually, economy would die because of the lack of transportation. So that's why looking at the megapolis through the land use development, making the land development correct, and also integrating it with the transportation is very important for the people.
Mr. Mavilmada, do you think we are getting our priorities wrong?
No, I just wanted to kind of add on to that. I think the megapolis is fundamentally important. It's a transformative project, because what we're looking at, on the one hand, we've got reconciliation and transitional justice that we are working on, but at the other end of the spectrum, we do have to set the groundwork for an economic transformation in the country, for sustainable peace, for this kind of social transitions to really take root. You have to provide opportunity across the board, not only for one segment of the population. So the Megapolis project is fundamentally about creating economic opportunity and creating a kind of equal access to better housing, better open spaces, better living standards across the province. And that's just the beginning, right? So we're looking at the Western Province, we're also looking at the Central Province, we're starting to look at Trinco in the South, and so on. So I think these kinds of planned, coordinated economic development agenda are fundamentally important.
Mr. Mavilmada, Sri Lanka signed into law the Right to Information Act just last month. Now the people of Sri Lanka have a right to know what is happening with their country, what you as government officials are going to do with their country. But there is no public information out there. I mean, I've been through your website, but before an agreement is entered into amounting to billions of dollars, I mean, the people do have a right to know about these things. How do you justify the Megapolis project, most of the decisions of which are not informed to the public?
I don't agree that most of the decisions are not informed, and I don't agree that we have signed up with billions of dollars of projects without any consultation. The fact is, the 1.25 billion you're talking about is the JICA project, and this has gone through rounds and rounds of discussion at the cabinet, at the Economic Affairs Committee, in the public domain, and that material is quite public knowledge. But even then, we still haven't signed a loan agreement. We're going into detailed feasibility. Those documents will also be made public as per JICA guidelines before they actually physically get committed.
Dr. Fernando, Mr. Nihal Fernando, I want to pose this question to you, since you're the project director for the Financial City project. What exactly is going to happen in this financial city? Because you're talking about green spaces and water system, artificial water systems, but what exactly will the financial city accomplish? Who are you hoping to attract as investors? I mean, is this going to be something like the Seychelles, where people come and open offshore accounts? Is that what the financial city is going to be?
Well, now the port city becoming financial city. The port city basically is a new city, a city where a space where we were going to attract investment. To attract investment, we had to have a lovely, nice green space. That is what we wanted to create in that. So that we have planned and we have started the work on that, and that is the first thing that we will be doing. We will be creating a land, 269 hectares of land, and we will be providing the infrastructure that is required to have a world-class city there. So that city can be...
What kind of investors are we going to have in this financial city? Is it going to be banks and
I am coming into that. Now, earlier the thing was, now we were going to create that and we were going to make it open for any investor to come and invest. We didn't have a focus at the very beginning, but halfway through, now recent times, we made a clear decision, the government made a clear decision that we are going to make this the international financial city of Colombo. Now to do that, one part is we are building the city and the balance will be done by the government of Sri Lanka. Now what they have planned to do here is to work out financial regulations and controls to ensure zero business failures. That is stated in one of the documents that the government is working on. So to do that, I mean, it's not built in the city or anything like that. When things of that nature happens, and when the financial controls are relaxed to this entity, this will become a very special entity where people will come and invest. Those investments will attract global.
What kind of investors are we talking about? I mean, for example, is it going to be like Wall Street with Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan and Morgan Stanley, and is it going to be big banks and financial service companies?
Yes.
Or is it going to be like Switzerland with a system of Swiss banks? Are we going to have a banking system like that? What kind of investors are we hoping to attract to the financial city? I mean, if the ordinary person on the road, let's say you're traveling in the bus and the conductor asks you, Mr. Fernando, who is the investor that you're... Can you give me an example of what kind of investor you're looking at?
Yeah, now the difference between the earlier city and this one, or Colombo and this entity, is the government is going to enact special laws to be applicable within this area, which will make it more attractive to investment than having their businesses in Colombo or having their businesses in somewhere else in the country. So this will attract, as you said, the financial entity, the banks, the investors, all of them to come into this. On top of that, government also has said even the workforce who is going to work there, the Sri Lankan workforce, also can be paid, their salaries can be paid in foreign currency. So that type of a thing. So our people, the so-called the experts who are working in the other countries doing the same thing, now can come back to Sri Lanka, work in this city and still earn.
So it will open up job opportunities for people like CFAs and CAs and
it will.
Can I add on to one of the questions that you are posing to Mr. Fernando? Does it mean, Mr. Fernando, that those who have black money across the world can come and invest their money in our financial city and get it out as white money?
No.
Is that a possibility?
No, it is not a system of making black money white.
Because we know that happens in Singapore and Dubai and countries like that, because Nayana Marvel Mother very correctly pointed out that they want to make this a hub in place of countries like countries like Dubai and Singapore, for an example. So my question to you is very simple. So is it a place where you can launder that money and get away with?
No, here we are not talking of money laundering. This is a place where genuine investors can come and invest, because we are looking at this region.
Where and in what?
In this, now we are going to have a special entity, a special city where the laws are going to be such that investors will be attracted, because in this region now we are looking at the Asian, the Indian region as going to be the next, the financial entity. So the location of this city is such that anyone who wants to get the benefit of that can come and invest here, make their base here. So because we have got so much to offer here, and from there they can develop and make use of the Asian region as their market.
Thank you, Mr. Fernando. Dr. Dimantha De Silva, we were talking about these transport projects, right? One of the biggest problems that Sri Lanka faces in implementing transportation reforms is the opposition that comes from the various unions in public transport right now. What will happen to our current public transport systems with the introduction of LRT, with the light rail transit system? What will happen to, for example, the private bus system and the Sri Lanka Railways?
Yeah, I think the whole master plan is not only on LRT. So we tend to talk about LRT because it's a new mode. Actually, the core focus is the rail. So we will have a new total revitalized rail system according to this plan.
Will the LRT system, the light rail transport, will that also come under Sri Lanka Railways?
No.
No.
It will come as a separate management system. But the LRT, rail, the bus system will be integrated. That means it will have to not compete each other, but basically supplement each other. The bus system has to feed to the rail or the LRT, while the LRT has to connect with the rail system as well. Because as I said in the start, for the focus was the rail first, where because it is a system that is already there, so we will revitalize and modernize it while connecting the LRT wherever we cannot go with the rail system, and to have a connectivity as a total network. So it is, as the example, it won't compete each other. It will have to supplement each other.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dimantha De Silva as well. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for giving us some insight on what the port city, which is now known as the financial city, is all about, and also what the Megapolis project is all about. We're going for a short commercial break. When we come back, we speak more and delve deeper into our development projects in the country. Are all this really feasible? Do we have the money? Will it come at the cost of your money, your pocket? All this and more after this short commercial break. Welcome back. This is Face the Nation. Let's start off the third round with Mr. Nihal Fernando, Project Director of Financial City, previously known as Port City. Mr. Fernando, how many years would it take to complete the Port City, the 260 hectares that we're talking about?
Yes, the 269 hectares of landfill will be done in 2.5 years. So the land will be available for that. During that time, the infrastructure also will be built in, like roads, the pipes and all that.
I want to get some clarification on that. 2.5 years from now,
yes,
269 hectares of land will be owned by the Sri Lankan government. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes.
Additional land?
Yes.
Who will control this land area in question? Is it the municipal council, is it the central government, or is it going to be another local authority like the provincial councils?
Yes, the basic, say the preliminary discussions that we had is it is going to be part of the district of Colombo. It will be declared under the district of Colombo by the President of Sri Lanka. He is the only person who is empowered by law to do a land sea sand fill of the seabed that had already been granted by the President of Sri Lanka. And when the land mass is available, then only these laws can come into effect. So it will be declared under the district of Colombo, but the management authority will be different. It's like the Colombo Municipal Council. There will be another entity which will be managing, providing all facilities, all infrastructure for the functioning of the city.
So will that particular body appointed by the people or appointed by the president of the country? Will there be an election like the local authority elections?
I think we'll have to wait for the details of it, but preliminary discussions indicate that it is going to be like a private company which will manage this as a world-class entity.
Is it the Chinese that's going to handle this company, or is it going to be Sri Lankans handling this company?
It will be the Sri Lankans will be handling this, because this is the entire land area is going to be under Sri Lanka. The Chinese will make the investment, and they get a certain portion of land for giving on lease. Once they give those lands on lease, they will make a return of that their investment, and after that they don't have any interest in this land, but it will become part of Sri Lanka. But for Sri Lanka, this land will ever be ours. So we have to look much beyond what the Chinese companies looking at this investment right now.
Do these Sri Lankan companies that you're referring to, would they have the technical knowledge, the technical know-how, and even the expertise to run an area like this?
Yes, we do, because this is going to be a better facilitated a new town. So it will be a new town which will have to be managed. So the collection of funds, the taxations, all that will give sufficient funds to run this thing.
So you mean to say, in other words, when this particular 269 hectares of land is completed, the government will not say that they want to handle it and keep it to themselves and not give it to the private sector that you're talking about? Will the government handle it after some time? Will they be greedy and say, okay, no, we want to handle the port city area, we want to handle the financial city, and will they take it under their umbrella, or will it be really given to a company to really manage?
The management will be given to a company.
Right.
That company will manage the thing, but the land will be owned by the government.
But no decision has been taken on this particular company as yet?
Not yet.
So you'll have to wait for 2.5 years and see which company is going to really bid and take this particular arrangement or governance of this particular area in question.
Yeah, whether there will be any bidding going on, we will have to wait and see, because this is going to be managed by a private entity, and that is still under discussion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nihal Fernando. I now move my attention to Mr. Nayana Marvil Mada, Head of Investments, Western Region Megapolis Planning Project. Mr. Marvil, we talk about bidding. Can and how will the private sector in Sri Lanka get involved in the Megapolis planning project? Right now, JICA has come on board. That's a G2G, government to government arrangement.
That's a concessional funding arrangement, actually.
What about the private sector in Sri Lanka?
Yeah, so the private sector will certainly get involved in investments as we go forward. There's a couple that are actually ongoing in discussions. The port harbour expansion is currently under tender as a public-private partnership. That is an ongoing project. We're looking at, for example, we're now working out a multimodal transportation hub in Fort, where the LRT, the electrified rail and the bus will all get consolidated in Colombo Fort. We're now packaging that to be put out on tender as a public-private partnership. Other projects, for example, the Bere waterfront, we've got about 1.5 kilometers from Lake House all the way to Nelunkuluna, which is all state land. We expect to incrementally roll this out as individual public-private partnership transactions. We've launched out now the accelerated middle income housing program. We've got about 7 sites that have already been tendered. In this case, what we are doing as government is we are putting out land at cost in particular areas for development of middle income housing. Middle income is defined in this case as housing units at a cost of 5 million rupees or less. So we give certain concessions to developers to come in to those lots and develop them for this target demographic. So there's programs that are actually already on. We're also doing certain land releases of parcels of land. UDA is currently tendering several large blocks of land on a completely transparent tender process. For example, the Colombo commercial land next to Altair, 6 acres, that's on tender right now.
So everything that you're talking about is going to be competitive bidding process and not unsolicited bids?
Yes, by and large.
Just for unsolicited bids or competitive bidding process?
So it's competitive, right? So the basic principle is these must be open to competition. So there's 2 scenarios that can happen. One is where the government says, okay, this is specifically what we want, and we put it out to tender. right? That's one option. So the multimodal transport hub will be one of those. We have very clear requirements of what we need to accomplish, and then we will put that out. There's other scenarios where the private sector may come up with suggestions of innovation that maybe the government had not thought of. So then we've now, the cabinet has endorsed a Swiss challenge process. What that means is, if party X comes and says, here's a good idea, here's what I think we can do in this particular location, then the government can take that proposal and consider it from a policy perspective to say, look, is this a good thing to do or not? And once you make that decision, is it a good thing to do or not, we will then open that out for an open challenge. So
how long will the government take to implement those proposals in question?
It depends on the type of proposal. If it's a small project, it's very, very quick, but we will still run through this competitive process. So if you come to me with a proposal and the cabinet of ministers says, okay, this is a good proposal, after some technical evaluation, we will put that out to bid so the rest of you can bid on it and match or beat those terms. And then the government gets really two things. One, it gets competition, and second, it gets some level, so it's fair access to the opportunity, and second, price discovery by competing on price. So we make sure that we get the best deal for the people.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nana Marvin Mada, Head of Investments, Western Region Megapolis Planning Project. We now move our attention to Dr. Dimantha De Silva, Consultant Team Leader, Transport Team, Western Region Megapolis Planning Project. Dr. De Silva, when the highways were built, they said that the Southern Expressway and even the Katanaik Highway, people said, even politicians who built them said, that it was their projects. However, former presidents say that was their plan that came into implementation. So my question to you is very simple. The projects that we're implementing right now, the transport system that you all intend to upgrade, whose idea is it? Is it the previous government's idea, or is it the former president's idea? You know who I'm referring to. Or is it the plan and proposal of the present regime? Because I don't want anyone else taking the credit for something that I proposed at the initial stage. Your time starts now.
Well, from my point of view, I don't care who gets the credit as long as it gets built, right? So I think
no, you know whose idea is it?
I think these plans have been, like, these proposals have been there for a long time. Like,
long time. How many years are we talking about?
For example, Southern Expressway has been, I can't give you a timeline, but probably 15 years. Outer Circular Road has been there for 15 years. So it has
the Megapolis development plan.
Megapolis is in 2003 came up. But what Megapolis has done is taken all those plans into consideration and has incorporated the transportation needs to have the megapolis in plan. So, as you said, highways example, like we have taken what the RDA proposes. The megapolis, the transport team has it is not one or two people's vision. It's a team effort. So what we have done is, we have for months we have associated all the stakeholders, RDA, Ministry of Transport, Railway, and taken all their existing plans and see how well it will incorporate into the megapolis plan, to the development, the structural plan. So I think it's not what regime or who should get the credit.
As long as the people get benefited at the end of the day.
Exactly. In the end, we need to develop what is needed for the country. Maybe once this been built, someone might take the credit, but it is about the people who should get the credit of the need is with the people.
Dr. De Silva, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's very important for the people at the end of the day to get benefited on whatever projects that are implemented. However, you speak about plans. Do you all really have a plan?
Yes.
What's that plan?
Well, we have a master plan for the transportation.
What's the master plan you all have?
Well, we have a 20-year plan, and we have
20
a plan.
years is a long time. Give me a 5 to 10 year plan, and I'm willing to listen to you. Don't give me a 20-year plan.
Well, we
give me
need
a
to-
5 to 10 year short-term plan that you all have in mind.
So we need to have a vision for 20 years. Otherwise, we will have a problem of by the time it's built. You're talking about five years. So most of this infrastructure takes 2 to 3 years to be built. But if you just plan for 5 years, what's going to happen is by the time it's been built, that system will be under capacity. You build a system which only can cater, say, 5 to 6,000 people. Then by the time it's built, the population has increased, people have migrated, then that system is in capacity. So that's why we need to have a plan for 15 to 20 years. But then gradually build it in phases. So for within the 5 years, we in our master plan, we have immediate, short, medium and long-term plans. So immediate things are certain feasibility studies or the starting things we need to get to the point of the short-term plans. So within 5 years, what are the needed projects that we need to have? Example, the phase 1 of the LRT,
Right.
25 kilometers. Then the Panudra Veyangoda rail line and the Kalini Valley line. So inland water transportation, upgrading of the signal systems, using the CCTV camera systems for enforcement to have more disciplined drivers. So on, we have so much short-term plans as well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dr. Dimando De Silva. I'll come back to you, Mr. Mahavir Madi, in a moment after talking to Mr. Lakshman Jayasekara. Ms. Jayasekara, your portfolio is Project Director, Team Leader, Western Region Megapolis Planning Project. Why only the Western region is focused upon? We saw something of this sort happening in Hambantota as well under the previous regime. All focus was on Hambantota. Why just focus on the Western province when we're talking about the 9 provinces in Sri Lanka? Why can't the government think of Sri Lanka as a whole? The time starts now.
Well, the job that was given to me confined to Western region. So, if I am given the job elsewhere, I will be very happy to consider that. But the theoretical background to that is out of the Sri Lanka's gross domestic product, about 42%, even more, is produced in Western region. So that's like the engine of the growth for the whole country if you take the country as one entity. Therefore, it is very relevant that the Western region gets started. But this doesn't mean Western region is the only thing this government is concentrating. That now they are going revisiting the Hambantota area. They are also making a major plan for the Eastern region, Trincomalee base. Then there is a plan for Jaffna. So the megapolis will become a kind of a testing ground how a plan can be quickly and promptly and effectively implement and get the required socio-economic benefit.
Mr. I want to interrupt you for a second here. You said a testing ground. Is this project a test or is it really happening?
It's absolutely testing and happening. There is nothing that is fixed in the urban development. Urban development is something that the input-output kind of a product. If you put input, as Mr. Mahavir said, if we can raise the necessary funding, if we can get the support of the people, if the political will is there, then you can achieve what you plan for. If you don't have those wills and if you don't have those funds, then there is nothing that is going to happen. Therefore, we are actually creating the megapolis as a model for rest of the other areas, so the other areas can follow the suit.
What if the test fails?
Test can fail because of the leadership, because of the funding, because of the willingness of the people who are pushing it. So that is why these 3 entities are very, very important. And therefore, the fact that this project is moved by a very important minister and a ministry, there was no ministry called Megapolis earlier. And this project has been recognized as a new ministry. There is a new minister, and it is also covered by what is called Cabinet Committee on the Economic Affairs, and they meet every week and supervise the things. So it is all how fast, how well you push it. If you don't push, if you push it halfway through, project will collapse.
Mr. Jayasekara, we usually don't ask hypothetical questions in this particular show. However, because you all are government officials and not politicians, I think we should be able to pose a few questions, hypothetical questions to you right now. You say about three important things. You speak about political will, you speak about the people's willingness and those who are involved in certain projects to push it further. Mr. Jayasekara, you are well aware that this government will only last for the next few years. And what if there is another change of regime in Sri Lanka? It will really be a test, isn't it?
I think it's a good question. I think it's a question that people would have asked when Mr. Lee Kuan Yew started Singapore 40-50 years ago. Had he not done what he did during the first decade or first 5 years, it would have never lasted 50 years. So it all depends on the plan implementation, depends on what you do in the first 5 years. Leave aside the 5 years, first 3 years. Now we are, as you said, we are into the first year, end of the first year. So what we do during this next year is far more important than what you do in next 20 years.
Mr. Jayasekara, I'm not trying to lock horns with you and Dr. De Silva here, but Dr. De Silva says that it's a long-term plan for 20 years.
Yes.
And you are saying we need to have a 5-year plan.
So,
and I'm trying to figure out here, seated here, what exactly is the plan that you all have?
Yeah, I'm saying the same thing. I'm saying the same thing. Plans are prepared for 10-year, 15-year, 20-year, 30-year. I answered your question in respect of the implementation.
Right.
People can prepare a plan. You know, you can do a building design for the 100-story building that can either built in 2 years, or if you have the technology and the willingness and the funding, as I said, you can build it.
So the government has 4 years now.
Yes.
So can they do it?
Within the 4 years, they can at least try and do the major part get going.
Thank you very much.
If they do that part, then the rest of the years, rest of the decades are ensured and assured.
Thank you very much,
If you don't do that
Mr.
within the
Jayasekara.
next 4 years, then you are in trouble.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jayasekara. I open the floor for questions from our journalists. Let's start off with Nadeem.
Thank you very much. Mr. Jayasekara, I'll start straight with you with regard to this question of years. Now, there was a interesting article in March in the Nikkei Asian Review, a very prominent publication, business and economy publication, which says that despite the impressive plan drawn up with the assistance of a Singapore-based planning and engineering group, the WRMPP's 15-year time frame, the absence of firm financing arrangements, the political vulnerability of the country and poor record of project completion raise questions about viability. Why is it a 15-year time frame? Why can't it be targets that are on a year-by-year basis?
Well, I think I answered the question. The plans can be 10-year, 15-year, 20-year, but the implementation depends on the will of the people, will of the.
But do you have year-on-year targets? Do you have,
Yes.
for example,
Yes.
targets? So, what are the targets for by end of 2016?
Yeah, from 5th of May 2015 now on up to now, we have completed the comprehensive integrated master plan, as Dr. Dimantha and everybody said, and then we have turned out 150 projects. Now the number of projects are growing from 150 to 70, 80, as Samal Mada mentioned, and the funds are coming in. Be it JICA, be it World Bank, be it any other agency, the funds are coming in. That shows the projects are viable and they are acceptable to the donor community, international community and the private sector. As Ms. Mahavil Mada said, now the projects are being sent to the tendering process. Intermode Transport Center is a very big project. It's about $1 billion project, and that's the kind of projects now getting offered to the private sector. So they should be picked up.
So these are year-on-year targets. That there is a specific time frame with which you hope to accomplish these.
Yes, these are like with the projects in place. formulated and built into what is called tender action. This is a very important thing. In the transparent system of project implementation, we have to get the project into a tender action program, and now that is a program which in Sri Lankan context takes about 3 months. If we advertise or if we get the documentation in place from the time of advertising to the
actual granting of the tender,
evaluation, and that will take 3 to 4-5 months if there are no complications. What happens is sometimes you get into complications like the challenge by the competitors, then it get longer time. But now our theory is this: we have such a lot of projects, such a lot of opportunities for the private sector. If they come get one project, if they fail on getting one project, they can go to the next project.
So you're saying that in this one the tender process will be a lot faster?
In this case, tender process is a lot faster because we are ready. We have done the documentation to the extent of getting it ready to the thrown into the public. Secondly, there are so much projects and so much opportunities. There will be investors who are not getting frustrated running from one project. If it fails, they try the next project and the next projects.
Mr. Mavimada, I'd like to ask you now, since Sri Lanka received independence, successive governments have had their grand development projects, their accelerated development projects. We saw this with Mahavali, with Galloya. Now these were all agriculture centered. Decades later, after all of these accelerated development projects, agriculture sector employs 1/3 of our country's population, but it only contributes 8% of our GDP. How is the megapolis project, megapolis development project, going to be different from those? Is it a value for money investment?
I think it's absolutely a value for money investment, and I like your point that basically we are no longer an agrarian nation, and we've got a disproportionate number of people employed in agriculture that is not yielding the productivity that it needs. So effectively what we need to see is people in agricultural employment moving to higher value employment, and people in lower value manufacturing employment move up the value chain. So we don't have that big an unemployment problem. We have a fairly big underemployment problem. So the megapolis is really about trying to position ourselves a little higher on the wage ladder.
Well, one of the biggest fears for ordinary Sri Lankans here is that in this problem of underemployment, obviously people working in the agricultural sector don't have the skills to immediately transfer to working in the financial sector or in marketing and management and very technical production, etc. So does the government have a plan to address this issue, or will the government address this issue by employing foreigners to do those jobs, and Sri Lankans will end up with the same underpaying jobs?
I think there's a gross misunderstanding generally about the skill deficit. When you say, for example, a technology job, you need to break up a technology manufacturing process into pieces. So it's not everybody that needs to be a rocket scientist and knows how to do this end to end. There's got to be somebody who knows how to weld one piece in, the other person who needs to know how to do the cover in. So you break down a manufacturing process into parts, and those parts need to be doable by relatively moderately skilled people. The Singapore, I can't remember the official recently who was speaking to us, was like, look, electronics, some of these electronics assembly people require less skill than a hairdresser. So it's really a question of how you look at this process. But that said, we do need to invest, and we are looking at expanding investment in education and in targeted sectors. For example, a lot more spend on technology education, a lot more spend on vocational education to basically support the construction industry and so on. So it's going to be a process. We do need to upskill our labor pool, but that said, it doesn't mean that our labor pool lacks any skills at all to enter.
But at the same time, for the Western, if the vision of this megapolis development project is to be realized, there is a requirement that our education system will also have to be upgraded.
Absolutely,
parallel to it.
Absolutely, yes.
Mr. Fernando, I'd like to come to you regarding the financial city once again. Maybe a lot of our viewers are unaware of this, but did you know that there are actually two Londons? There's the London that we all know, where you have the Big Ben and the Tower of London and Buckingham Palace, etc. But there's also the City of London, within London itself, which is the financial services and commercial hub of the United Kingdom, of Great Britain. Is the financial city, now the City of London is run by a corporation called the City of London Corporation, and the CEO of that corporation is the Lord Mayor of the City of London. He was in Sri Lanka recently as well, last year actually. I was at a forum where he was speaking, trying to attract investors there and trying to attract companies from the City of London to come and invest in Sri Lanka. Is the financial city also, is local government and policing going to be done by a corporation like in the City of London? Will it be an elected body?
No, it will be somewhat similar to what you explained in, as in London, because now here it's going to be part of the Colombo district but run by a separate entity. It is going to be, I mean, if you look at a huge building in the city of Colombo, that building is managed by a different entity. All the services, everything is done by them, but the city is run by a separate entity. So similarly, if you look at this financial city, some of the services will be provided through the systems that are available in Sri Lanka already.
But it like a big building, it will have its own maintenance and
yes. So some of the services will be provided by the systems that are already there, but it will be managed by a separate entity. It will be, we expect it to be better managed, because now this city we are talking of is a city which is going to be operational right throughout the day. There will be night work as well. There will be night lighting in the buildings. It will be a separate entity. All the spaces will be available for public to use even in the night. So the lighting will be different, the services will be different. All that will be provided by a separate entity which is going to manage the city.
Mr. Fernando, could you just educate our viewers on the legal implications of the financial city? For example, how will the affairs be governed? What courts would have jurisdiction over this city? Or is it still in planning stage?
Yeah, sorry, I am not a legal person, but I went through some of the documents and just got a little bit of details. There is, separate parties studying the legal processes of this one. Okay, it is okay to say the legal aspects are now looked into by Baker and McKenzie of Hong Kong, and the financial things are looked into by the KPMG. So likewise, there is a team working on this, and also there are certain things that have stated in those documents. There will be now, say, for dispute resolution of this city, there will be a separate entity which is applicable only within the city.
Right.
So as I understand it, it is going to be a separate entity. So they do not have to come into the Sri Lankan system, Sri Lankan court system for dispute resolution.
But it is still in the pending stages.
That is, yeah, still in that stage. I don't have the details of that.
Mr.
Right.
Jayasekara?
Charita,
Yeah, okay.
for a minute, and then we will get back to you. Yes, Sonali, you have one more question? Or?
Yes, Mr. Fernando, how do you justify the financial city with the environmental repercussions? I mean, as the Western province is right now, we have to deal with tremendous amounts of flooding. There's so much of short-sightedness going on. So how do you justify that as the project director?
Yeah. Flooding, I don't think we'll have to worry about flooding in the new city, because all those have been
Environmental repercussions as
environmental repercussions, yes. We have now, when we had the temporary suspension, a special environmental report was done there were so many professional institutions involved in this, like the NARA, the GSMB, the government, I mean say the University of Moratuwa, University of Peradeniya, they were the parties who were involved in this process, and there is a document which was prepared, and all the environmental aspects have been looked into. After that we made it open for public comments. After we got the comments, we went through the whole process, and a clearance was granted, and in that clearance it has been given with 71 conditions. So those conditions are the ones which will govern this whole development. So it is very safe environmentally, so we don't we have looked into all those things.
Charita, excuse me 1 minute until I ask my last question from Mr. Jayasekara.
We usually have fights within the panelists, but today we have fights to ask questions from
Mr. Jayasekara, one of the 10 key objectives of the Megapolis project has been stated as ensuring environmental sustainability and disaster resilience. So, making the megapolis resilient to climate change and natural disasters. Is this actually possible?
This is not one of the 10. This is the most fundamental of the megapolis.
Is it practical?
It is. It has to be. Otherwise, we are all doomed as a region. The 20% of the megapolis region is wetlands, water bodies and paddy fields, and also there is a bit of Singharaja forest creeping into the Kaltura, which is part of the megapolis region. We got to protect those things absolutely and conclusively as compared to what has happened in the past. You know, a lot of illegal reclamation, blocking the rivers and the water bodies, and even taking the paddy field converted into commercial fields. So we have put our plan on the basis of this total conservation of the environmentally very fragile areas. That's number one. So this is not one of the 10, that is the thing on which everything else will be built upon. And whether this is possible, well, we can't do anything about the global warming, the sea level rises, but we can be prepared for that. We can prepare the nation and the region, not only the region but the entire the nation for the impending natural global disasters. So this is a warning and this is an action.
Dr. De Silva, we're talking about 269 hectares of land. I'm presuming that individuals are not going to walk on this particular area in question. There has to be a transportation system. What is the transportation system that you all envisage to the port city area or the financial city area?
The port city transport plan is part of the port city or the financial city project. So it is not as it's part of the megapolis transport plan. But we have given provision in the LRT network to have a connection to the LRT network to the port. So definitely the port city or the financial city should have a mass transport system because of the number of people that will be brought into the port city for daily needs. But as I said, it is not looked as part of the megapolis master plan, but as part of the port city plan.
Dr. Dimanta, earlier on in the show you were saying that we need to have, we need to upgrade our public transport and we need to have a cohesive and complementary system where we have buses and the LRT and the rail that complements each other. Can we have a complementary system if you have a separate system for financial cities and a separate public transport system for the rest of the megapolis? Shouldn't that also be connected to the larger public transportation system of the megapolis? Yeah,
it is. It will be. So how it is connected is through common places, like multimodal center in the fort would be a transfer point to go into the city, while the road network would have it would have its own public transport system, which will integrate with the I would call the mainland public transport system. So that's how it should complement each other, and it is about the transferability and the integration.
Yes. I want to know now, Colombo already has a problem with garbage, right? With the megapolis coming in, have you thought about that area? How are you going to tackle the garbage issue? Also, energy. Now there is a school of thought that if you don't build the Sampur coal power plant, we might run into power shortages in the future. And there's another school of thought saying that no, we should move to renewable energy. What will the megapolis project, how will you deal with this energy demand and garbage?
May I, with your permission, take the second question first? The energy issue is, although we can pass it to as a question for the CEB, what we are trying to do, it is a two-pronged strategy. One is, most of the buildings coming up under the megapolis plan will have renewable technology, and it will encourage them to have the renewable technologies and the various solar power and other systems. Secondly, eventually we will actually bring in rigid regulation in order to force some of the buildings to have these systems, new system, renewable systems adapted. Therefore, we can reduce the requirement of the energy consumption to a certain extent. However, we got to get the power system in the western region provision ensured, and that with the increasing building demand and the growth that we have envisaged, that the power system will cater to the impending development. And that is where we are now thinking about, instead of the fuel-based energy generation, to go for the LNG, the gas-based or combined cycle at the beginning, but eventually turn into the gas. So we have allocated the land at Kerolapitiya, close to Attala, for about 350 megawatts of the gas turbine and combined cycle energy generation, and we expect the Sampur issue and the Trincomalee issue to be resolved sooner than later. Whether it is coal or the gas is a question that at the moment everyone is looking at, and there should be a resolution faster. But in the event that doesn't come online as fast as we would like to, we are trying to get these Kerolapitiya, the gas-driven turbines up and running. If it doesn't work, then the Western region, the Honourable Minister in charge of the ministry has now said, get ready for any eventuality and go for the alternative technologies.
Dr. De Silva, my last question, Shamil. Now, it is said that on any given day in Colombo, it is reported that there are 10 million daily trips within Colombo metropolitan area, 1.9 million passengers enter Colombo, and then 7.8 million motorized trips. So by 2030, what will this situation be like? And are you looking at the overall, when you take the overall transport plan, are you looking to improve public transport? Or because if the government reduces taxes, there will be more cars imported, and if fuel prices go down, there will be more cars on the street. So what is your overall plan long term?
Yeah, that's why I told in the it's a 20-year plan. So because we have to look at where we will be in 20 years time. Almost we will be doubling the amount of travel by 2035, and that's why we need to promote the public transport, and that's why we want to invest our money on the public transport. That's why 67% of the transportation infrastructure is for the public transport, including railway, LRT, inland water transport, upgrade and modernization of the bus systems. All that comes to about 67% of the total transport master plan. So definitely we need to upgrade it, but we need to come up with policies as well to restrict the private use. But we cannot do that until we upgrade our public transport system, because people need to have an option, right? If we bring electronic road pricing, right, what would happen if it doesn't have a public transport system as an alternative? It will only become another financial burden on them. So there's no alternative for them. But if we have a public transporting system, in parallel, once we have the public transport system in place, we should have policies to restrict the private use as well. When I said, so we should not always be focusing on just on cars, because Sri Lanka has a very high captive market for cars. when I say captive, whatever the policies we make, people would not want to change from their car. So what we have to look at, change from the motorcycle use, the three-wheeler use, and to come up back to the private public transport.
Thank you very much, Dr. De Silva, for your thoughts as well. We're now going for a short commercial break. When we come back, it's the final round of Face the Nation. Stay connected. Stay with us. Welcome back. This is Face the Nation. Let's start off the final round with Dr. Dimantha De Silva, Consultant Team Leader Transport Team of the Megapolis Planning Project. Dr. De Silva, every single time I use public transportation after 5 p.m., I find it extremely difficult to travel on a bus or even a train. Every single time I want to go out station using public transport, it is extremely difficult for me to travel by train or even on a bus. How would your plan be different to that plan that we are adopting right now? How is it going to be different? Is it going to be a successful plan, or is it just talk only? The time starts now. 2 minutes.
Well, I hope it's a successful plan, and I am planning for a successful plan. And I think what you're talking is about the connectivity. I think what has happened is once a person decides to go out on a journey, he needs certain information. You know, whether the transportation is continuous from his home to their destination. So sometimes what has happened is some parts are good enough, but some parts are not developed enough. So for example, if he leaves at home, whether he can come back home from the same mode. Sometimes if he comes back in the night, that means like if there is no public transport in the night, so he is compelled to use a private transport mode. So that's what we want to change here. We want to change here by giving the public transport priority and invest on the public transport to bring up that infrastructure. So for that, the bus transport is important. We need to improve the bus transport to have a connectivity from their homes to the rail stations. And the rail stations the rail transport is where the mass transport is needed. If you look at the worldwide, that's where the majority of the longer distance are being taken care of. So we need a good connectivity to this transport network.
But is it all practical, Dr. De Silva? Let me ask a very simple question from you. When was the last time you used the public transportation?
I used about 1 month back.
How was it?
It was for a short distance, right? It was from my service station to my home because I put my vehicle for the service. Yes. Definitely, I would say our public transport is poor. Right?
How must it be improved? You say that improvements are needed. How?
Well, we need to modernize our service. So without a modernized service, we cannot attract private transport users to public transport. We should have a convenient, reliable, so two things, convenience, the reliability is important. The comfort is another aspect. So if we can tackle those three areas, we can attract more private transport users.
Doctor, I want to drag your attention to a few years ago when the former Minister of Transport introduced a system where individuals come and drive from their cars, personal vehicles, and park it in a particular point, that is either in Panadura or even Rakpanana, and then takes the public transportation to their workplace. This system didn't work. Is it a testing policy again? My question to you is very simple. Why are we testing now? It's not going to work, will it?
Yes, what you're talking is about a park and ride system. The park and ride system didn't work because it was only one point, like from taking from Katubedda to Fort, right? But the journey was still slow, right? So the time that took for them was not. They got the comfort level up, right?
So how is your plan going to be different?
So that's why we want to make a reliable service. That's where the rail transport is great, because we are not competing on the road itself, where there's mixed traffic. That's why the rail system, even if you go now to the rail system, which is poor, we still can be guaranteed of the right time.
So this light rail system is going to replace the existing rail system. Is that what you're trying to say?
No.
It's going to be a new system.
It's a new system. It will be.
So where is the land for this?
Well, we are going on the road system, on center island of system, on elevated when we go on Colombo. But when we go to the suburbs, we have about 17% of 75 kilometers to go on the ground.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dimantha De Silva, Consultant Team Leader Transport Team of the Megapolis Planning Project. I now move my attention to Mr. Lakshman Jayasekara, Project Director, Team Leader of the same institute, that is the Megapolis Planning Project. Mr. Jayasekara, an interesting question was posed by Charita about several aspects. My attention is on the garbage issue. We right now in Colombo have a garbage problem. Where are we really going to dump the garbage that is going to be accumulated from the port city, from the projects that we're talking about right now?
Right.
How are we going to do it?
Yeah.
Do you all have a plan?
Yes, we do. And
where are we going to dump it?
The project implementation cell is placed under the ministry, and there was this what is called secretaries committee, which should have come. Actually, I have seen them giving lectures on the TV, MTV, etc. Now, what has happened is they have called for quotation and tenders, and I believe there were about 30-40 tenders received, and they have selected 4, 5 or 6 in terms of the shortlisting. So very soon there will be operators collecting the garbage and going and incineration or various other technologies being applied, very modern technologies, and then there will be a question of fly ash being transported from Colombo city to various other places.
There's going to be a lot of fly ash in Sri Lanka, because if the coal power plant is built in Sampur, we are going to have tons of fly ash from there, and then we are going to have tons of fly ash from the Colombo Western Development Area as well. And who is going to use this fly ash at the end of the day? It's not food we're talking about, Mr. Jayasekara.
Yeah, as long
this
as
has to be used by some organizations like cement factories, so on and so forth, and even roads for that matter.
Well, that's not true really. As long as you are producing garbage, you should be able to dispose it. So fly ash is only a fragment of the volumes of the garbage that Sri Lanka and the western region is producing, 1,000 megawatts a day, and adding into more and more. So we have to depend on several technologies. One of the technologies is the incineration. One of the technologies is going and doing the dumping yards in the scientific method, and also third one is taking the garbage out to remote areas like Puttalam and where there's a separate system being operated. So we believe also that today we, in a particular technical meeting, we decided to have localized garbage recycling units. If an area produces the garbage, that area should take care of that production rather than going and dumping into somebody else's backyard. And that kind of policies will be now introduced in time to come in terms of the large scale development. If the development is about new city, like what Mr. Mahalmad mentioned about Mirigama new city or an industrial city, that has to take care of with it.
One final question to you, Mr. Jayasekara, because we're talking about garbage. We currently have a garbage issue in Valampitia. We are trying to figure out a place to dump this garbage in question. Why isn't this technology that you're talking about right now is not applicable when it comes to this dumping facility?
I think it will be soon. There are a lot of political and the social issues affiliated to the garbage. I'm not expert on the garbage. That's why I said there's a special unit established.
Now my question to you again. You said that leadership is important. You said that political will is important. You said that people's willingness to change is important. Garbage issue. We can't solve this problem. You say it's a political issue. Do we have a plan for the future?
Yeah, there is. As I explained, they ran a tender by the Urban Development Authority, which was one of our sister agencies, and they have now shortlisted out of 40 people into 4 or 5 capable people, and those companies should get into operation soon. In relation to that, there are other policy issues, and there are sociological issues, psychological issues, that we like to dump our garbage into the front door, but we don't like it to be dumped somewhere in the close proximity. It has to be taken away from Colombo city, from the western region, and it is going and dumped in Valampitia or somewhere else. This attitude has to be changed. In order to change the attitude, we have to bring in the new technologies. So both are difficult situation. Change in the social attitude is not an easy thing in this country, and change in the technology is taking time. I think you should give the time for the technology and then look at how to deal with this sociological thinking.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jayasekara, for your thoughts as well. I now move my attention to Mr. Nihal Fernando, Project Director, Port City Project, which is now known as the Financial City. I'm referring to the Port City Project so our viewers would get a clear understanding that it is not the Port City Project anymore, but now it is transformed as the Financial City. We posed a question to Mr. Fernando: is it a gift in a different wrapping? Mr. Fernando, technology is difficult, attitudes are difficult. That is the thoughts of the individual who is next to you on to your left. And we are talking about a Port City project, which is a technologically advanced project. Can we really do it? We're talking about a few years from now. We're talking about investment, construction, 2.5 years from now, a new governing system. Can all this be done, or is it going to be another miracle?
No, all those things have been worked out. As I said, the investment is from China, but the detailing was done by the world's best firms that are handling these different sectors. All of them have got together and put up this plan, and there is funding available for this. So because of that, the city will get built with all these modern facilities, and it will be run by a design system as well. And with all that, there will be Chinese investment coming in, there will be a modern city with all facilities, and there will be investors from different parts of the country who will come and invest and make this a viable city. But with all this, we have done the planning along with those teams, and we have always looked at the public facilities. Just to mention a few, and we will be building here 12 hectares of sea beach, beautiful beaches for our people to go and enjoy. There will be 54 hectares of a central park around which this city will be built, which the central park will be available for public entry, and it is going to be a beautiful landscape garden. And then there is a 2-kilometer long canal which is technically required for the functioning of the city, and which will also be made available for floating facilities, for which the people will be in a position to enjoy. You could go into a nicely lit up boat in the night, have a meal in the boat while you are riding this canal, and there will be such facilities available for public of Sri Lanka to use in this city.
Mr. Fernando, I have a question for you before wrapping up. Mr. Fernando, when I was a kid, I still recollect how I went with my family to Golfes, which was a low-cost affair, a low-cost picnic for us as kids. That is nearly 25 years ago. I'm not going to divulge my age to you at this forum in any way. However, this was a long time ago. I was just 5 years old at that time. Will Sri Lankans not have the golf face anymore when the port city is built?
When the port city is built, the golf face green will be intact. It will be enhanced. Nothing will happen to the golf face green. It will still be there, but in addition to that, as I told you, there will be beaches available for people as well.
Will I be able to, when I'm hopefully married in the next few years, will I be able to go with my kids and have a meal at Golface and tell them that so many years ago I was here just having a meal in this particular area in question? Will I be able to say that?
Definitely yes. You will be able to say the same thing by sitting in the Golface screen, as well as you will be able to sit in a beach in the port city or the financial city and point out that is where I was enjoying when I was 5 years, and now we are here, and also we have now beautiful spaces, boats for us to go inside
now
this port city.
Now you speak about the boats, Mr. Fernando. My second question to you.
Yes.
Will all Sri Lankans, the thousands of people who come to Golface, have access to boats? I am just presuming it's going to be full of boats in the Golface.
Not in the Golface, I am talking of the financial city. I was talking of a canal which was available inside and the circular route which was available.
Will I have to pay money?
If you want to go in there, you will be able to.
Mr. Fernando, will I have
there.
to pay money to use those boats?
Not to go in the boats, but if you want to have a meal in those boats, you will have to.
Mr. Fernando, how long is your term, by the way, as project director of the financial city?
Sorry?
How long is your term as the project director of the financial city?
Yeah, the 3 years from now, the city will be available.
Now, how long is your term?
Yeah, I'll be working for that as well.
Mr. Fernando, I'm going to make an assurance to you. If this show runs up until then, I will have a conversation with you on this very show 2.5 years from now to see whether you stick to your word and whether this government sticks to its word as well. Thank you very much, Mr. Fernando.
I'll be happy to join you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fernando. I now move my attention to final speaker of the day, Mr. Naina Marvel Mada, Head of Investments, Western Region Megapolis Planning Project. Mr. Marvel Mada, I'm posing a lot of emotional questions because this country is very close to my heart, and this country is very close to my organization as well, because at the end of the day, our organization started business in this resplendent island. In a few years from now, will the people of Sri Lanka have to bear the brunt of the megapolis development projects? Will the people of Sri Lanka ask to tighten their belts and sacrifice their present for the future? Your time starts now.
No, I think the people of this country will reap the benefits of the megapolis. Yes, we will have to launch some major public sector projects, but I think the benefits of the major things that we will unleash will far outweigh the costs.
Where is Sri Lanka going to head in the next few years? Where do you see Sri Lanka in the next few years, Mr. Marvel Mada? Do you think we're on the right track?
I think we are. Yeah, I think there are challenges, but we are certainly on the right track. I think just judging from the international investor interest that we see at the megapolis project, it's quite staggering the amount of goodwill that is pouring in. In some sense, the pressure is on us to really start to unleash these projects one by one. But yeah, I think the sentiment is very positive, and I'm very, very optimistic actually.
Mr. Marvel Mada, we are talking of a government who could not even get a 15% VAT imposed properly. We're talking about a government who is still struggling to get some foreign direct investments on board. Can we really do it?
I think so. I think so,
How?
absolutely. Look, these types of things are a process, right? And in a way, what we are doing now is we're building foundations, and building foundations takes time. Building foundations takes a little longer when these foundation building exercises are subject to lots of debate. But I, for one, personally believe these debates are good because it forces us to come up with the best answers. It takes us a tad bit longer, but then when we do come up with answers and we do come up with solutions, they're much more robust. So I think we are definitely on the right track, and it will take some time to ramp up. But I think once now what we see is the structural elements are in place, and we are starting to get the biggest kind of the structural elements actually funded, and that will then lead into to bigger things going forward.
After listening to the 4 gentlemen, that's including yourself, Mr. Mavil Mada, I'm trying to figure out where the Board of Investment comes into play. It seems to me that everything is done through the megapolis, and the BOI is just a body?
No. The megapolis is effectively the planning entity. So we are responsible for coordinating the efforts across multiple government agencies to synchronize them to make sure that we achieve the macro objectives of the overall plan. The Board of Investment has a very specific mandate to facilitate the investors coming in. So for example, if we were to do an elevated highway section as a public-private partnership, now we will initiate that project as saying, look, this is what we want to do, this is our requirement, we'll help run the tender process in collaboration with RDA, but when the investor comes in, the specific tax exemptions, the specific legal provisions, those will be facilitated by BOI. So the mandate is very, very specific.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us this evening. Mr. Nihal Fernando, Project Director, Port City Project, which is now known as Financial City. Hopefully in 2.5 years, when we have Mr. Fernando seated here, we can call it the fully fledged Financial City, at least with the 269 additional hectares added to our country. Thank you very much, Mr. Lakshman Jayasekara, for joining us this evening, Project Director, Team Leader of the Megapolis Planning Project. Mr. Naina Mavil Mada, Head of Investments, Dr. Dimantha De Silva, Consultant Team Leader, Transport Team of the Western Region Megapolis Planning Project. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us this evening and enlightening our viewers about the future of Sri Lanka and the development projects that the government has in mind. Thank you very much, Nadeem. Thank you very much, Sonali Vanagabaduge, Attorney at Law, and thank you very much, Charvita Fernando, for joining us this evening. I thought I will leave tonight with a story. A few months ago, when Newsfirst went across the country, the Gammadda Gain Getter program, the Gammadda Door-to-Door campaign, we documented many issues faced by Sri Lankans. 39 days ago, we launched our implementation program, and in a few weeks, in a few days, we will complete our 100-day program. Why is it taking so long for a government which has the funds, which has the attitude, which has the change required, so long to start on their development projects? Will it really happen? I want to end this show with a few words. Mr. Jayasekara said attitude is very important. The people have to change their attitude. Mr. Mavil Mada said that he's very bullish on the country's future, and Mr. Fernando said what I enjoyed as a child will be enjoyed by the future generations of this resplendent island. And Dr. De Silva said hope is very, very important. Aspirations are important for a better future. I hope and pray it's not miracles that we see in the next few years. I leave you tonight with a quote. Man cannot discover new oceans unless he has the courage to lose sight of the shore. The man has to have a boat. The man has to have a paddle. The boat is good governance. Paddle is the effort to go that extra mile and take you to the next destination. Thank you very much. Take care and good night.